Yeah, right.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Today we have a very special treat for you, our third live AMA. And today we have IoTeX co-founder Raullen and lead blockchain engineer Dustin. I'm Larry, head of BD, and today we're going to be answering some of your questions around mainnet preview Photon, as well as our newly launched open testnet. So before we even started, this live stream, we gathered a lot of questions from the community, and we're going to go through, one by one, those questions that you have. And also, in the last 15 minutes, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if you have any specific questions, you can leave them in the YouTube chat, and we'll answer them accordingly. But just to get started, maybe we can have you guys do a few introductions, maybe starting with Dustin.
Yeah, my name is Dustin. I'm one of the early developers in IoTeX. During the past 10 months, we have been doing great. We released 4 code releases according to the roadmap on time every time. And we are looking into launching the mainnet in the Q1 of 2019. So it's really a great time now for the entire IoTeX community. And I also want to thank you for all the support and from the open community. In our testnet pre-launch, we already see a lot of good feedback from people in the development community. Yeah, thanks a lot for that.
Absolutely. Maybe you want to share a little bit about your background and how you kind of got here today?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I graduated from University of Southern California, and I have some background in security and cryptography. So at the beginning of this year, I saw Raullen was actively reaching out. Guys say, hey, we had a awesome project here. IoTeX blockchain for IoT devices. So I take a look and I see, wow, it's really. I actually know of the Bitcoin back in 2010, but
early.
But this time when I really looked into, I really studied the white paper, and I see, wow, blockchain does have a very huge potential to bring revolutionary changes to many fields.
Absolutely.
So then I talked with Raullen, and we feel it's a very good opportunity. So I joined. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Dustin's been with us almost from day one. So he's seen it all, and he's happy to share some of those perspectives with you guys today. And Raullen doesn't really need an introduction.
Dustin is actually the first engineer we have for IoTeX. And if you look at complete history of IoTeX repo, I think you will see Dustin's code at the very beginning in this repo. Yeah. Thanks for your contribution.
Thanks.
Yeah. And this guy doesn't need too much of an introduction, but for our new community members, why don't you give a little background about yourself and your kind of role day to day?
Sure. Hi, Raullen, co-founder of IoTeX. Probably I'm pretty busy with lots of things on the project side, given this a bearish market, which didn't affect us too much, but still we are actually me personally, I'm working very closely on the lending and the business development side of this project. Besides, in addition to the technical development, so our long-term vision is no matter how this market goes, the block technology definitely is the future of the future world. So we will definitely invest very heavily in the blockchain technology in terms of finding real use case for this technology. Cryptocurrency is just one side of things. But we are also very, very interested in the other side of how can we use blockchain technology to address a real world problems. Actually.
And I think that's a very good point. It's kind of throughout 2018, kind of looking back, from the time when Dustin joined, we've launched several code releases. We've made a lot of progress on the token side, listing on exchanges. And now we're kind of entering a new phase where we're really applying this technology to the real world use cases.
Exactly.
And that's very exciting. I think a lot of the questions today are going to be focused on, our last testnet code release, mainnet preview, aka Photon. And maybe just, in your own words, maybe at a high level, what are the core features of Photon, and why was this a big milestone for IoTeX?
You want to go first?
I think in the Photon, we actually did a lot of like very big new features. For example, the subchain provisioning. Everybody knows blockchain needs like a fast offline layer 2 infrastructure. So subchain is the key ingredient in there. We also did some very initial implementation of the cross-chain communication. Those are like very important features if you want to have a very scalable blockchain infrastructure. And we also boost the consensus scheme, both in terms of performance, we made it faster, we made it more robust, and in terms of like security, we add more validation into our code base. So also our testnet now runs very stably on the backend infrastructure. That I think are some of the like technical side of the things, and Raullen, maybe you can count on.
Yeah, and I think we'll dive into some of the more technical details in later questions. But another big thing that we just launched last week is we just opened up our testnet. We launched brand new software development kits and developer documentation, which give people the chance to start a node, run transactions, deploy the apps. So that's another big milestone. Do you want to chat a little bit about the importance of that?
Yeah. Basically, to summarize what you guys are talking about, right? So there are, I think, there are 4 aspects. The first one is scalability. Basically, we take another step forward to increase the scalability by doing this like a subchain. I think in our testnet, we already have this subchain actually working. It can start, stop, and also talking with other subchains. So that's a really like a impressive milestone. I didn't see like much other projects that have done this. That's basically the first thing we have done for this release. Another thing, actually, probably you guys didn't mention too much, is like a privacy feature. I think this will also like be a really like a future, really like a future-proof feature for like the blockchain technology. Is how do you enable like a privacy preserving smart contract, privacy preserving transactions. So we do have like an in-house innovation about this privacy. It's called we call it like a plum chain, because it's like a kind of like a plasma subchain plus our in-house like cryptography, which forms this like a new privacy preserving subchain, which we have not announced yet. Probably this is a good chance to do
sneak peek.
Sneak peek about this a little bit. But like we have like engineers like very aggressively working on this subchain. So once we launch this like a mainnet, we want this privacy preserving subchain to be our first like a real subchain that has some like a real use cases. Okay, so that's a privacy. And third one is probably like Larry was talking about is like the developability. So we want to make this blockchain as a platform to be useful for people, right? But developers, users, or who cares about technology. So that's why we have that like we have our engineers working really hard on this documentation, SDK, API, and even some demo apps running on top of that. And once like this everything is consolidated, we want to have it like open testnet, what we call open testnet, to the whole world. Basically, people can just connect to the IoTeX blockchain, use our technology to build like whatever they like. So that's the third one. And probably last one is like basically we want to announce like maybe a few things, right? Like what is our vision for like the things coming down the road in next like 1 or 2 years. We do have like some PR articles. I think Larry is working on it that about IoT and blockchain, how the two will emerge and how the two will emerge to change the world. We have a series of blog posts. I think Larry already posted the first one.
Yeah, a few blogs on Medium that are brand new around the blockchain and IoT tech stack,
right? And
also just general IoT platform landscape. So, you can find that on our Medium page, and the things that Dustin and Raullen were talking about. As always, our code is always open source. You can check out our GitHub for the mainnet preview Photon code, as well as on our website. There's a new documentation tab that you can find all of our SDKs and developer documentation. But I think the first question that we're going to dive into from the community is around the difference between this previous code release and what we're going to be releasing in Q1 2019 with mainnet alpha. So can you kind of describe, the importance of that transition and what are the difference of the key features, not only on the technology side, but also on, I guess, the master node side?
Yeah. So that's a good, very good point actually. So for the next release, I think there are I'm thinking about three things we're going to really target on. So one is like a security and reliability, because once we launch this mainnet, we will have like a people's real token, which means like a real assets running on top of us, which will be super important. Like security and reliability will be super important.
Right.
Yeah. So that's basically like the first goal for this thing. The second goal, like Larry mentioned, we will have like our supernode election kind of program kickoff probably end of this month or probably early January, where we will have rules to elect like a BPs who will be like the maintainers for the entire IoTeX network. So they can do the BP block production for like the mainnet, also for the subchains as well. So that's also like a very important feature. That's not like a technical thing. It's more like how do we engage people, how do we engage the external world to like participate into running this IoTeX network, which will like do some good things for the human society, right?
But
So
also, very crucial to the success of the network, right? You need to elect block producers that are not only have a large stake in the network, but also contribute on the community side, the marketing side, the development side. So
yeah. Let me add a comment on it. I already saw in the like open testnet, there's quite a few guys already successfully set up our phone nodes connect to our testnet from the GitHub channel. Really appreciate that support from the community, and I think like Raullen and Larry said, the success is the community's success. We already saw a couple of competent guys expressing interest in setting up as our supernode. So we are very glad to see that, and that will be our priority for the next month. Like we'll be really focusing on how could we set up these good community members to be the supernode. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So look out for more guidance on the staking requirements, the governance and voting process. And do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm thinking about like the last but not least, the important thing is so we want to make like next release really ready for the developers. Like you guys can see for this release, we already have SDK API and docs already kick off, already released. But we want to take a leap forward upon that, right? We want to make them like a really awesome and mature enough for developers to really build something on top of. Actually, we do have our own DApps, which is in progress. We want to like leverage this project, a small project, to exercise like the APIs, the SDK, the documentation we have, and also like make them even better. So that's the next goal for
a lot of work to do.
For next release.
Exciting, but busy times in the next few months. This next
question, Christmas is coming.
Maybe working through that.
Working Christmas.
But this next project, this next question is about the open source nature of the blockchain industry. One thing that we tend to see a lot is a lot of open source projects, but there are also some that are not open source. What do you think is the future between open source development versus kind of closed private development in the blockchain industry?
Dustin, you want to say something first?
I think like open source is definitely the spirit and trend of the current development community, especially in the crypto project, right? Number one, like if this project involves crypto, then you need to be open source, because a good practice is, for crypto thing, your algorithm design should be open source for public review and consensus. And you only keep the private key. Everybody knows that. And the other thing was like, if you are a blockchain project, then you also need to be open source, because it's like decentralized, right? The spirit was like decentralized. You cannot do blockchain thing in a private way. So and also in the past like 10 years, we've seen the open source community has bring really like boom flying change to the industry as compared to 10 years ago. A lot of like every popular data platform projects today was open source. You name it, like Cassandra or Hadoop or Kubernetes, everything, Docker, right? So everything was open source. So we fully embrace the open source, methodology.
Absolutely. And for people that are looking to contribute to this open source project of ours, there's ways to engage. You want to kind of talk a little bit about, for people of all skill levels, how can they contribute, whether it's to the code, its documentation, or kind of the distribution?
Yeah, actually, I want to talk about like the involvement of a blockchain project. So that's the thing I have been thinking for a while. So what I have been like seeing so far is there are like two extreme for a blockchain project. One is like owned by a centralized team, and one is like definitely leaderless. For example, Bitcoin, right? Like Satoshi, who knows where he is. So it's definitely like a leaderless. It's owned by community. So open source seems to be like in a transition stage. So you can see like controlled by a team, probably open source, and gradually owned by the community. So that's like 3 steps. So this years ago, here's where we start. So which is good, I think. As we can see, like as a protocol at a very early stage, we do need like kind of centralized effort to put everything together, to put like intelligence, everything together to make it work. And once we have it launched, we are going to gradually like open source, and also not just open source, and also like you said, open to other developers, open to like other ideas, basically other even like cultures, for example, right, to involve from there. And eventually, which is owned by the community. Ethereum, I think, is at you can say stage 2. So like they are pretty open. But lots of people just like throwing ideas into like Ethereum, like the Casper things they are working on, also like the beacon chain kind of everything they are working on.
All of Serenity.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking like we are still at a very early stage of open source. So it's mostly contributions from the team, but we do have few contributions from the community for now. But from thing like we once we launch the mainnet, we definitely want like more people, especially smart people, experienced people, like have their like put their smart head down and contribute to our source code, contribute to IoTeX technology as well. Eventually, this project will be owned by community.
So
do you see a future where IoTeX will kind of adopt any improvement proposals and governance around it? Like, how do you guys think about once the foundation is built, by kind of the central team? How will the community kind of interact and reach consensus around the future of the platform?
Well, I want to just add like currently, like Raullen said, we are very close to like the end of like building that underlying infrastructure. Think about as building a highway. Right, you have a dedicated team building the entire highway, and once the highway is ready and open, everybody can run all different kinds of cars and business on top of it. So basically,
absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of governance, right? So like the eventual goal is on-chain governance. That means like you have everything on the blockchain. Like people can just vote for it, vote for it, and finalize on the blockchain. Still, like we're at a very early stage of this technology. So I think I have seen lots of governance. They are basically still in a centralized way. For example, Ethereum, they are doing pretty good, right? So they have this EIP, which means Ethereum Improvement Protocol, which is like an open repo. Every people just can contribute ideas. I think we are probably going to follow them as well in terms of like this form of EIP, which seems to be a good idea. Also, like Bitcoin has a similar thing called BIP. So we should do like IIP. Or do we have a better
coming
name?
soon?
Yeah.
That's great. I think we'll look forward to more development of the foundation, and for people that want to contribute already, you can reach out on Gitter and see if there's ways to contribute your code. This next question is around oracles. This is something that the concept of bringing trusted data from outside the blockchain into the ecosystem so it can be used. What's our perspective on that, especially in the IoT sphere, where IoT devices are kind of the bridge between the physical and digital worlds?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how does that play into our project?
So yeah, I've been thinking about this also for a while. So if you think like a blockchain, if you compare blockchain to cloud computing, right, then there needs to be something that to be computed or stored on this platform as well. Like blockchain as we see for now, like they have some internal data, which for example, like ICO, token, smart contract, those are the data that's like a kind of internalized into the blockchain, which like the blockchain can just doing contract on top of. But that's not enough. If you really want to solve like real world problems, you will need to interact with like the external world, like the outer world there. So that's why, like Larry said, we do think like the data oracle, especially in a decentralized way, would be really, really important. And IoT is basically at a very special position in this like whole picture because IoT is like the link between the digital world and the physical world. So where you can pour data into this oracle, and if I think there are two layer of trust we can get from here. One is like if the data from the IoT device is attested, is basically authenticated, then we can make sure, okay, the data is good. We can pour it into the Oracle. That's one. Another way is doing like a kind of a TCR approach. Like people will vote on in the Oracle to say if the data, how's the quality, right? Is it real data, fake data, or is good data, bad data? So once we have these two parts down, like all the data contained in Oracle is really like an Oracle. So it should be like a source of truth for lots of things.
Right.
Yeah. Then like blockchain can do computation on top of this.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a really like
it's important to keep the sanctity of the data.
Exactly.
Make sure that it's fully trusted. If you're bringing unverifiable data into the ecosystem, it's not really usable in the same context as other data in the network.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This next question is around IoT is the concept of connecting devices to the internet, allowing them to talk to each other. Today, there's around 10 billion IoT devices. Estimates, in the next 5 years are up to 100 billion devices. So, in general, what are the things that we think about from like a consensus, services, and kind of resources perspective to help developers manage that large number of devices, kind of using our platform?
Yeah, that's really a very I think challenging question because given so many devices and so many of data flow, so like again, like what we said earlier is we are currently building the infrastructure that we design our protocols for all those protocols to work robustly and stably on the blockchain. Then on top of that, people could brainstorm and think about ways like how can they utilize certain type of data. Like for example, they could start a subchain if they are particularly interested in certain categories of data.
Right.
And
but I guess at the protocol level, like what kind of design decisions do we make or trade-offs do we consider to make it so we can support this vast number of devices? Is there something special within Rolldepots or kind of the design of the infrastructure that differentiates us from other projects that won't be able to support that?
Yeah, we have. I think in our blockchain we have a couple of design at the very early beginning stages. Like for example, we have a lightweight crypto design. We have some improvement in the crypto algorithm, like some special signing algorithm to make the data size to make everything very lightweight. It costs less power, less battery to run. If you run our algorithm, your battery could run a little longer. The data size is compact and smaller. That's like we tailor fit our system for the IoT devices.
Right.
And also, I think the other thing is like our Rolldepots has instant finality, which means once a block was proposed, agreed, and written to the blockchain, it's final, it's there. It won't fork.
Yeah.
It doesn't like blockchain or other like POW-based chain. You have a potential risk of being attacked and roll back the blockchain. But for us, we have the instant finality.
Right.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, I think I will answer this question from a different angle, basically. So to interact with like a bigger and bigger scope of entities, you will need automation. So So think about if you are interacting with like 3-5 people, that's basically what you can do like manually, basically what you're doing daily, right? So that's fine. At Google, Facebook, and other companies, like the interaction is like between one people or maybe one machine versus like thousands of machines. So that's like this automation kicks in. So they have like a pretty good automation tools, automation like a systems to make it happen. But what we're talking about here is like we want to increase this scope even larger. So it's like one party talk to maybe 10 million of devices. Like as a person, I want to talk with 10 million devices probably. So that's like a centralized way will not work. because like each centralized we only cover, I don't know, thousands of machines or even 10,000 machines. So that's why blockchain would be very promising in terms of that, because blockchain is like a neutral platform, not owned by us, not owned by anyone. So all the devices will be like willing to connect it to this blockchain and contribute their data or whatever the information they have.
It's really the network effect.
Yeah, it's a network effect. Yeah, exactly. And also through this, we can have this like a 1 to billion kind of scope automation. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this next question is going back to mainnet preview. You know, while we were developing, I guess this is just throughout all of 2018. You know, what are the biggest challenges as far as development goes? You know, we've launched some very innovative features, especially in mainnet preview, around cross-chain communication and sub-chain provisioning. What have been the difficulties in developing those kind of features?
Yeah, I think you know, as a developer, like at the early stage of the project, I think it's kind of very smooth, and because you have a lot of reference, you have a lot of existing things to you could reference when you design, when you implement your system. But as we push, really now we are in a position that we are pushing to the frontier of cutting edge technologies. For example, like subchain provision, cross-chain communication. These are like really active research field. Like there's no like answer solution there. So you have to kind of like explore. And every day we run into, you know, unmet problem before, like unknowns. So
it's more of like a problem solving.
Kind of like,
it's not just implementation.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like you dig a mile, you dig a little bit, and then you see, and then you continue digging a little bit. It's not like but it's very fun and challenging, I think.
Yeah,
the challenge itself is fun. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, I think we are already thinking about the questions, the problems, like Ethereum folks, EOS folks, they're thinking about, right? In terms of how do we do this? Give an example, like how do we do like this sharding among like a different chains, right? How do we have this like election, ongoing kind of like a Casper POS kind of election ongoing, without like people just block all the votes? Because like sorry, like a little bit off topic. For example, like one problem we saw so far about the depots is there is an assumption if this 22 guy or how many whatever BP, so if they own the network and they don't want to give up this BP seats, right? For example, so they will just turn down or reject all the voting transactions. Then there's no way like we can just kick them out. Yeah, so that's a real problem. Like we saw so far for the depots consensus. So that's why like we are even like have some discussions with Ethereum folks about if there any way we can short term use Ethereum as our like a voting chain or maybe election chain for a short period of time before we build our own like a election chain. So that's like we can do the voting and election on this chain, and also our root chain will just like read the status from this election chain and decide who the BPs are. Right. So that's kind of like a research problem, which doesn't have like it's no like final answer. Yeah, everything is like in progress. Right. Yeah.
I imagine it will continue to be always in progress. Right. There's always ways to improve the protocol. Implement newer components and technologies.
Yeah, I think this is also another like interesting perspective of the blockchain. It contains like the economic side of thing and like social behavior side of thing. Like think of these BP as a government, like you vote them up, but now they take the full control and they reject your vote, say, to ask them step down, right? How do you solve that? It's like really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating too. Blockchain in itself, you're basically encoding this rule set, right? But that's not even though that's like the ideal way things will happen. Human nature and like behavioral economics. 95% of people make decisions based on what they're familiar with or what they're comfortable with. So it's not always straight to the algorithmic levels. So.
Exactly, like you have to put some check and balance in there. Like.
Exactly, all part of the fun. This next question is around SDKs and documentations and how beginner developers can get more involved. And we kind of touched on this question already, but some other resources for you to look at. We just created a new IoTeX developer Telegram group. It's IoTeX DEV. And you can join that today. And for beginner developers, I think the path is to read through the documentation. We also uploaded a sample DApp. You guys may have participated in our Roll the Dice campaign, and that's actually a DApp that's running on top of our testnet, and you can kind of comb through the smart contracts that allow that to happen. But I think the next question is around how do you position yourself in the market? There's a lot of competitors or people working in this space of blockchain and IoT. This person mentioned Ergo, Top Network, IOTA. There's autonomy and so many different projects. So I guess the question is, how do we see ourselves either competing or cooperating with other projects in this space?
Yeah, it really depends, right? We do want have corporations with a high quality projects. For example, this Top Network. Actually, I was talking with the CEO and CMO. I think yesterday, they were here. Yeah. So the reason what I'm saying is given this various market, everybody is unhappy, right? Because people are losing money, right? People are they have a very bad investment in terms of cryptocurrency. But then that's also some opportunities here. For example, we have some high quality teams or maybe high quality people. They don't have much fund to run their project down the road. So they're also thinking about to join IoTeX because we are pretty well funded here. So they want to join us also with their products, with their ideas. So actually, we are actively interviewing a few teams around here to see if we want on board one or two of them. So that's one. Another one is for a high quality, also well-funded projects like Top Network and other projects here. We do want to work with them very closely because blockchain is such a big scope thing, right? We cannot conquer by ourselves, definitely. Even Ethereum, you see, Ethereum has hundreds people. They're still struggling in lots of aspects given this time. So we do want cooperation and with other projects, with different projects. That's what we've been doing. I think Larry also have signed lots of partnership with other blockchain projects.
Yeah, and I feel 2019 is going to be, the narrative has always been once the infrastructure is ready, then it's going to be the time for DApps. And I think as Dustin mentioned, IoTeX Foundation is almost there. So I think 2019 is going to be a big year for DApps. It's even more collaboration in the space, even more ideas about how to implement these different building blocks that we're working on. So this next question is around, I guess, the partnerships page. Can we expect the IoTeX partnerships to expand? And what about hardware partners? Do you guys want to talk about kind of some hardware elements, or is that something that we're looking into at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's still kind of a very early stage for the hardware thing. We're exploring some hardware. I think we can disclose this information later. Yeah, once we have more.
Still in design mode, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and outside of that, I think we've been working a lot behind the scenes. I think in August and September we announced several partnerships with Lineable, SmartHab, Weave. Everyone is still kind of working on their individual goals. But again, I think 2019 is going to be a great time. A lot of development has been going on behind the scenes in 2018, which I think a lot of projects will start to showcase in 2019. And I guess this one more question around I guess the bear market. How does this affect I guess I know it doesn't really affect technical development, but does it have any effect on the way we approach things or do business?
Actually, it does, right? It does affect a tech side of things.
Okay, never mind.
We're seeing a fewer DApp developers in this space, given this. Yeah, when Bitcoin was a 20k USD, lots of people tech people want to get into this, so they just build the DApps on top of whatever public blockchain they have. But now, given this, they are kind of calm down and go back to their work. So we're seeing less DApp developers. Yeah, so that's one, right? And in terms for this long development of this IoTeX projects, I think the impact is limited, right? It's not fair to say there is no impact. Basically, it impacts everyone. Yeah, it impacts everyone. So, but like in the long road, we can see this as like just like go down and up. So that's very natural. If you look at the other technologies, no matter AI, like a self-driving car, or even VR, IR, 3D printing, every technology just goes through this circle. Like they will have a hype at the very beginning, which goes very high. It will drop a lot, right? Because people realize there are limitations for this technology, and there are use cases yet to be found for this technology. So this hype will disappear,
right?
And then there will be some solid people just keep working in this industry, trying to identify its real value. Then it will actually goes up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say just give it some time, and we are working really hard on that. We want to find like the real use case for blockchain. We want like bring the real value to our users, customers. So that's what we have been.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened also for internet. Like it booms and it crashes, but the real good team, the real talent people, I think now it's actually a good time for for technical side to really focus on the technology side, develop the cool features, right? And also it helps weed out a lot of noise and bubbles from the market. So the really good guys are gonna stay, and they would find way out and see. Because the blockchain technology has its value. So I think for technical side now it's actually think of it as a good time you could sit down and really focus on the cool technologies you want to develop, right?
I guess it's like a two sides of it, right? Like on one side it's less people entering, but on the other side it makes people focus a lot more, because if they can't just be throwing darts and everything is going to stick. Really have to find the use cases that work.
So like if you look at this bubbles, they're so interesting. Like they're so helpful to like a push for the involvement of technology. Like once we have bubble, it will push lots of capitals, talents into this area. And then when the bubble just went away, these people and talents will be trapped here, right? Like they have nothing else. They can just like work really hard to figure out where this is going. And if this happens, this technology just evolves.
Absolutely. I think the barrier to entry of fundraising is making people think a lot about their approach to the market and what to focus on specifically. So, and this last question from the community, the pre-selected questions is, what other ways can the community help the IoTeX project? They do specifically mention articles, creative videos. I think I can take this question. Over the next couple months, whether you're a developer or you're a general just project enthusiast, there's a lot of ways to help. We're going to be launching a pretty extensive bug bounty for developers in the next coming month or so, and a lot of ways to contribute, to the project as we discussed earlier. And on the community side, we just started a brand ambassador program for IoTeX. Right now, we have a very global footprint around people that are, helping us regionally or develop materials or just post on social media. Any way they could be helpful. So if you're interested, you can find that information on our Medium page around our brand ambassador program, and surely there's a lot of ways to contribute. And specifically, if you guys are on Telegram, you could chat with Alina and Lori about how to get more involved on the community side.
On the tech side?
Yeah, on the tech side, I think you are very welcome. We have a GitHub channel on github.im. Just search IoTeX Dev Community. You will see our channel, and we really appreciate a lot of guys actually posting things that, I have successfully set up a full node at which IP address, and also a lot of guys raised like technical issues. For example, our KOL in Italian, Simone, he has problems setting up full nodes, so he reported the bug, and we kind of work with him and solve the issue. So that's very appreciated. Like we need feedback from community to see, maybe. Because usually, sometimes, like my testing environment cannot see the issue, right? There's a lot of network things or different things involved. So we really appreciate that. And also, we had another maybe a very active Fabio. So he also made a pull request, say, he helped us test the front end launch script, and like the Docker had some issues. So he opened a pull request, and we verified and merged that. So that's very welcome on the technical side, like help us testing our testing our open testnet, set up a full node, try the SDK, try the API in the SDK, and if there's any issue, you just drop us a message on the GitHub channel.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, also a small favor task for everyone, basically trusting us, trusting what we're doing, and also trust our vision. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have some questions from the live chat now. I think we'll jump into that section.
Okay.
One of which is, what database is used for the testnet right now? I imagine it's running on Amazon.
We currently using a database called BoatDB. It's actually a branch. It's a Go implementation of the branch from the level DB, and at the very early beginning, we choose to use it, and so far it stood the test of time, and it's working quite well. But at the same time, we're also actually, like 2 weeks ago, we're actually seeing some performance issue when we try to push the limit on testnet, and we are also evaluating other data options. For example, like Badger DB, that it's like a recently new DB with some improvements. So we are actually actively evaluating the pros and cons versus two. We're kind of say if we can do any improvement, then we'll be switching. There's a lot of things happening in the backend.
A lot of things to consider, right?
Yeah. The reason Dustin is actually actively looking into this is because this raises some questions from scalability. Like once you have a very high TPS, you will have some problem about storing those data. Right? Today, like a Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are simple. They're just a few hundred gigabytes, so you can easily store those data on disk, or so maybe some metadata, like a single computer DB. So, but we're saying if we will be really successful, and if a data like a TPS is like a few thousands, then there will be lots of data. They cannot store on one computer. They have to store like a
data center.
Not a data center. It's like a decentralized way or whatever. That's why we're actually looking into different database technologies for this underlying metadata.
So this next question is around hiring. Are we still hiring, and what kind of profiles are we looking for at IoTeX right now?
Very good question. Yes, we are. Yeah, we are definitely looking for a very high quality developers, engineers, researchers, right? So I can say there are 3 roles we're hiring. First, a backend engineer, also we call protocol engineer, which will work very closely with Dustin, Zhu, and other people probably they have seen so far, working on this blockchain protocol. So that's a backend role. And also we're looking for front-end role because we do build up our apps, our products on top of IoTeX blockchain, where we need some people to understand how we do the mobile apps, how we do the front end, which I don't know how, right? Another role is a research role. We want people with intensive research experience in distributed systems, cryptography, and even economics to join us to push a frontier of this technology. That's kind of who we are looking for.
And on the business development, marketing side, and design side, we're actively looking for graphic designers to join the team, and also just people that are very passionate about the business side of blockchain and IoT. There's a lot of research because it's such a broad market. You list a million verticals that use IoT devices, right? There's a lot of business development to be done. So as we get more serious about that, going into 2019, I think we'll be staffing up that side as well. And if you are interested in dropping a resume, you can send us an email at hello@iotex.io. So these are the last 3 questions from the live set. One of which we kind of already addressed around how the bear market, this bearish trend can last a long time, and asking if there's any effect on the development of the project. I think the answer we mentioned is it makes the entire ecosystem more focused. But anything specifically that we're doing, or?
I think at this stage, finding a real use case becomes even more important, right? How would you justify you are doing the right thing, right? You need to bring the value to the system, to the customer, to the users. So that's why I have been so busy involved into a business development, also landing, trying to find a use case for IoTeX technology or even blockchain technology. So that's one priority we have right now in this bearish market.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a popular kind of circular feedback loop around, infrastructure will dictate what kind of apps can be built, and then apps will then dictate what infrastructure is needed, and that's kind of the cycle. Do you think that's true for us as well?
Yeah, there are two different views, right? Like even myself, I have two different views. One is like for this infra, once it has new features, it will unlock some new apps, right? Which we cannot do as of today. For example, privacy. For privacy really becomes practical and good, great to use, then there will be some like a very privacy preserving focused apps appears, which could be like a care application. Right? So another view is like from top down is once we know kind of, for example, supply chain, once we know like a supply chain kind of system, how it works, what the features are needed there, we want to tailor those features into the underlying blockchain, which will also help to involve the blockchain technology itself. I think both of them are right, just like a fit into different scenarios.
Yeah. So I think like I'm not a business person, but like I want to say to the community that like if you are on the business side, you have like certain resource, you have certain projects. Like for example, I ran a local supply chain. I have 100 trucks delivering for 20 business, whatever, right? So if you could think of, I have this system, like if blockchain can do something to improve my business, regardless, to save resource or improve efficiency, or the blockchain technology can be used to like kind of prove my data, right, in the delivery system, or like auditing. You could just reach out to Larry, our marketing development, to say, hey, I have this real world problem in my business, right? Can blockchain help me, or I want to achieve whatever goal, and we can sit down and say, maybe we could tailor fit design something for you.
Definitely happy to share those perspectives. We've been kind of digging very deep internally, going through the motions of identifying where the actual friction points in traditional industry is and how blockchain applies.
So did we make an announcement about the Racebus onboarding? Not yet, right?
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Stay tuned for news. We just onboarded like a really good guy.
So it's our head of global enterprise, comes from Infosys, and he's going to be joining us to kind of lead the strategy around how to apply this technology in more of an enterprise setting. So stay tuned for the formal announcement. Maybe 3 more rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Any new exchanges for IoTeX, Sue?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So basically, let's face the fact, right? In this bearish market, lots of the exchanges are dying, especially like a small ones on the tail, so which we don't care too much. Anyway, they're dying. So we work with like those exchanges that are like big enough, sustainable enough. Yes, we are working with some of them. It's just like given this bearish market, they're kind of slow down about this listing process. It will take a while, but I think we are in a very good process about some very big exchanges there.
Cool. So stay tuned with that. There's another question around proof of work versus proof of stake. So mentioning that proof of work as using Bitcoin is very energy intensive because people are trying to solve this complicated kind of lottery hash so they can produce the next block. With role depots, how does that affect kind of the energy consumption, environmental friendliness, and I guess overall efficiency? Maybe walk through that concept.
Yeah, so as compared to POW, the POS state, proof of stake, means like we have a certain trusted nodes which have already put a stake into the system. So we kind of trust them to process all the data and transaction on the network. So instead of have to putting that hundreds of megawatts to solve the problem, what we need is just all these all these super nodes can reach a consensus on the next block to be produced. And also, of course, in our role depots, we have a so-called practical Byzantine fault tolerance, because you cannot always put total trust in a certain group of people, because that's kind of like single point of failure. You cannot always put all the trust there. So the system is like tolerant. If less than like 1/3 of the nodes are corrupted, then the system can still run correctly and give you correct results.
So the energy is allocated towards identifying whether the 1/3 malicious actors exist versus kind of solve this very difficult puzzle to the next puzzle.
Exactly.
And the last question is around regulation and the SEC. This is something that I think everyone is very anxious to hear for like a definitive answer from the SEC. We've heard like little snippets around their approach to ICOs and Ether Delta and stuff like that. But what are your perspectives on when we'll find some good or bad news from the SEC and US regulators?
Yeah,
we also wish we could know the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just keep eyes on like what is going on the regulation side. We're just like keep very, very active trying to figure out what is going on here. But still, I think everything is still in progress.
It keeps on getting delayed. Like I was reading yesterday, the Van Eck ETF got delayed till February now. Backed got delayed from. Backed was supposed to come out in 5 days. Now it's end of January. So I think we'll find some clarity on it soon. But
they're having Christmas, right?
Huh?
They're having Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good segue into this last piece. So will we see any photos or videos of us celebrating Christmas in the new year?
We should. We definitely should.
We definitely could.
Yeah, it's counting on you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Laurie on the other side of the camera.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely have some IoTeX holiday cheer. And we'll definitely keep you guys posted around our plans for the holiday season. I imagine we're going to take some time off and spend it with the families, but also a lot of work to be done leading up to January and February.
Yeah, just a work from home.
Exactly.
With your family.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the wrap. That's the final question for our live AMA today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thanks Dustin and Raullen for taking time out of their very busy schedule to chat with the community. And there's a lot of new announcements that'll be coming up soon. Focus around developer bug bounties, new ways to interact with the project, and going into 2019, the first 3 months are going to be very action-packed. So your continued support is going to help us bring IoTeX to the next level. I think we're right at the cliff right now of some very, very big things. So until then, we're probably the last live AMA of 2018. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next year.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the support from the community. Yeah.
Any final words?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. See you next year.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.